Welcome to another episode of When We Heal, the World Heals. I'm Trish Hay, your host, here with Christy Braun is my special guest. Braun is a End of Life Practitioner, a Death Doula, and what I consider to be a dear sister. I met her through Kathy Heller's community and we became fast friends. She is a keeper of the light, and I wanted to know more about her origin story of how she came into her work and her purpose and became the woman she is today. So welcome, Christy. Can't wait to hear more about your life and your work.
Thank you so much for having me, Trish. We have so much fun together. I'm excited for this time. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, why don't we just start? If you could just share a little bit about your origin story, um, and then we can talk some about, of course, your work. And I'm so excited to share about your passion and
Sure.
purpose you're currently doing. But if you
Yeah.
can share a bit of your origin story with us first, that would be
So
great.
like the origin story about my mommy and daddy loved each other so much when I was born, or you want to go with like how I became a death doula?
Yeah,
Uh,
how you became like a heart-based worker and
yeah.
to this work,
Okay.
what
Cool.
made you the woman you are today, that really compassionate caregiver and
Yeah.
light worker that you are.
Yeah. So the work found me really, which is interesting. So I had a 20-year career in insurance, which is usually a conversation stopper at parties, but not like when you tell people you're a death doula. So, yeah, very popular at parties. Actually, it's not. I make fun, but people really do lean in. They do. They get really interested and curious, which I think is interesting. I feel like it's so important to have the conversation about death and dying, and to be able to talk about it openly. So that's part of what I do. So how did I get here? I took a hiatus. So there was a 20-year career. I quit my job. I bought a boat and went and sailed for the better part of 6 or 7 years. And so kind of just fell off the grid. And it was amazing. It was an amazing reset. It was it the nervous system reset was absolutely, I can't even explain it. So that was the first part. Then things got kind of hard. We got hit by hurricanes, some different things happened. We lived through 2 hurricanes.
Wow.
So, and and then your nervous system gets activated again, and you're like, oh gosh, I'd forgotten like that, that I am here, fight, flight, like this is where I'm living again. Which is when we decided, okay, this isn't fun anymore. So we packed it in and returned to land. And I have the distinct pleasure of being able to return home to my actual childhood home. Um, so I was longing for the grass. There's a special grass on my parents' property. It's St. Augustine grass in California. How it got here, I don't know. Um, and so I just needed to feel my feet on the ground, and I needed that particular ground underneath me. So I was able to take that time to reset and really think about what's really important to me, and
Mhm.
also to get super clear on what am I good at? Where do I shine? And so
Mhm.
for me, the parts that are easy are the parts that are hard for other people. People call me when they're in a jam. Christy, what should I do?
Right.
Because I can generate options, because I can, like, on the fly. Like I get super focused, and it's like, okay, you can do this, or you can do nothing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when I was, and it's funny, I have a big piece of paper over there where I started writing out all the things I'm good at. And there's a tagline on my website. It says, I'm here for the hard parts. And that's what it says at the top of that paper. And when things get hard, I get like super focused. So that's kind of how it found me. It was like, okay, do I want to be a coach? Do I want to help people through divorce? Do I want to help people who are transitioning in the workforce? That is very difficult. Moving out of the corporate sphere into entrepreneurship was not easy. Right. And some days it's still not easy. But that's kind of how it happened, just kind of getting quiet and not having all the extra noise around me. You go to an office every day and you don't really realize, like, these aren't my people. I think I've kept two. I think two or three people from that world that were my people and still are my people. But by and large, there's hundreds of people in an insurance office, and it was just so much chaos all the time. So yeah, so that's how it kind of found me. I have had experiences throughout my life with death. The first death I ever experienced, I was bullied as a child. Talk about healing, right? We talk about trauma, and my story's not really super special. A lot of children were bullied. The part that makes mine just a little bit different is my bully died.
Mm,
So here I am. I'm a child. My prefrontal cortex is not intact, right?
right.
And I have this person that I hate, and I've got diary entries that back that up. I hate this person, right? He's so mean. He said this today. He did this today. This happened. This happened. This happened. I have all this chronicled, right? And then I learned that he's dead. And
Wow.
he died tragically in a motor vehicle accident. And I didn't know what to do with that because I felt really sad and I could not figure out, how am I sad? This person is bad. Well, we know that he wasn't. I hope we all know that he wasn't bad.
Right, but you're a
Um,
little child. Yeah, like how old
yeah.
were you at this time that you were getting bullied and by this
So
young?
yeah, kindergarten through 8th grade
Oh, a
was the
long
bullying.
time.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I never really fit in. I'm super emotional. I have a super emotional heart, and I wear my feelings on my sleeve, and I never figured out how to hide them. I never figured out how to do that, and I
Which is
tried so
beautiful.
hard to fit in,
Yeah.
and when I stopped that, then I learned where I belong.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a catalyst, and a really important time of my life where I started to learn, okay, two things can exist at one time. Yes, I had a bad experience with this person, right? And I'm sad that they've died. And we'll say kept in touch with him. He's buried about 3 miles from here. And over the years, I've visited his grave. There was so much compassion that I was able to develop through this experience. And as from from being a younger person all the way through, like I'm much 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 older now, and so to be able to develop that compassion and see that person from a 360-degree viewpoint. He had lost his mother as a small child. I think when we were in fourth grade, his mother died. Fourth or fifth
No.
grade, his mother died. And then a few years later, I don't know how many, his father went to prison. And he came from a big family, and I don't know how that family survived all that and stayed together, and so I don't you never know what the pressures are that are on somebody. And so that helped me develop a compassion for people who are not like me, people who don't look like me, don't talk like me, don't have the same experience as me, and it really opened up my lens. And that helps in my work because we all have the one common experience of end of life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people meet it in different ways. Some people are very religious, come from a very, staunch religious background, and I can meet them where they are. That's the whole beauty of what I do. I don't have that particular edict in my life, but I can meet them there because that's what they believe. And
Right.
there's room for all of it. As long as there's love, there's room for everything.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. And what would you, because when I first met you and I heard you were a death doula, I had never heard of that before. And I know it's like a new emerging field, but it's something that I just know I worked hospice many years ago. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, why didn't we have that? But I'm glad we have it now. And if you could share a little bit about what a death doula is, what do they do? Because I know that if I was in my end of life, like I would love to have you, to be there. In addition, because I explain the difference between what you do in hospice, because
Yeah.
hospice is of course beneficial, but it goes to a certain point.
Yeah.
And so if you could talk a
Hospice.
little bit about what you
Happy
do.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hospice is great. Like full
Yeah.
on. 100%. Hospice is an amazing resource. And I am hooked in with my local hospice. I do the pro bono work that I do is through hospice. I'm a hospice volunteer. And
Wonderful.
I love it. So hospice takes care of the medical aspects, right? You've got a nurse assigned to your case. So
Mhm.
someone would go on hospice. Let me back up. Someone would go on hospice when they receive a terminal diagnosis. Okay, so you've got 6 months or less to live. You've got a terminal illness. Um, you're eligible for hospice. So hospice will come in depending upon where some people stay in the home. A lot of my clients stay in the home. Some people are in facilities, depending upon the level of care that they need, because some disease processes require 24-hour supervision and care. So a hospice will bring in durable medical equipment. They'll bring in the bed, they'll bring in the commode, they bring in a comfort kit, which is medical medicine that's interventions for pain and anxiety, nausea, whatever your disease process may be presenting. There'll be a comfort kit, and your caregiver will be instructed on how to use that. So, hospice is doing all of this medical support. Plus, they have a social worker, and the social worker helps with some of the um, nuanced family type details. All families are different, right? Everybody's handling these things different. And the
Right.
social worker is able to connect them to resources within the community. The chaplain can come in. So there's a chaplain that can come in and work with the family or with the dying person. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of support through hospice. The
Right.
thing about hospice is regulated by the government, right?
Right.
And so there are limits on what hospice can do. Your nurse will generally see you once a week for about an hour, maybe two.
Mhm.
Your social worker will check in weekly.
Right.
That's not a lot of support when we're looking at a caregiver who's giving 24-hour care to their person. So,
Exactly.
and so many caregivers are alone, right? So many, it's
Yeah.
the spouse or usually the eldest child. No shade, middle children, youngest children. Sometimes it's a child. I apologize. Um, can you tell that I'm an oldest child? I have that oldest child bias. Here we go. See, here's my bias coming up. Oops, put ourselves in check. So what I'm able to offer is I'm able to offer support in the times when other people aren't there, when hospice isn't there, and I'm able to delve into some of the nuance. So there's a lot of different things that a doula will do. So if we were to start, let's start from the beginning. Um, Somebody calls me, hi, I just received a diagnosis. I don't know what to do, right? We're in shock. We don't know what to do. So I come in, we talk about all of the different services that I can provide, starting with, do you have an advance directive? Have you made your wishes known? Oh, I have a DNR. Okay, a DNR is part of an advance directive, but
Mm.
let's talk about how you want this to go down. Just like a birth doula, right? So when we talk
Yes.
about birth doulas, those are a little bit more common. They'll make a birth plan. And
Right.
these are the things that you would like to have happen during the birth of your child or children. Okay. Same type of scenario. Can we guarantee it? We can't, but we can try to play it as close to the playbook as possible.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
That's
And
beautiful.
and after that initial shock phase, then there's usually a period of time. It depends, from person to person. It could be weeks, it could be months, where it's like, okay, we're kind of hanging out. All right, well, let's talk about who you would like to see. Who would you like to have come visit you? What types of experiences would you like to have if people are still mobile and they want to go to Disneyland? Well,
Yes.
let's figure out a way so we can make that happen. Disneyland was just, I mean, I want to go to Disneyland. I'm just saying, it's been a while. It's been a few years. It's time.
That would be on my list when I get my
I love Disneyland.
if I'm blessed to know some advanced knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go play at Disneyland while you still can. Absolutely.
yeah. And then some people want to work on legacy projects. They want to work on like a video or something. Some people want to write their own obituary. And so these are things that we talk about that I'm like, hey, does this appeal to you? Yes or no? No, I don't want to write my obituary. I want my daughter to do that. Cool. Then I approach the daughter. Mom says she'd like you to write the obituary. Would you like some help with that? That kind of thing. Just kind of and making a kind of a pathway, little blueprint, and then we
Mhm.
follow it to check the items off, but we're not in a rigid, we only have this much amount of time to get this done. We have to rush through it. The biggest part of my job is that I slow down time. And I'm like, let's
Mm.
just breathe. Let's just take a beat. And I do that all the way through the process. So then once somebody goes into their transition phase where they're starting to decline, and there are physical indicators of that, we know, we can kind of guess that we're, days to weeks, and then we can guess when we're days to hours. And I
Mhm.
guide people through that. And I don't have rules and regulations around things that I can and can't say. The medical field has a lot of rules, right, about what they can and can't
Right.
say. Now, I can say from my experience, it would appear to me that your mom has weeks to days. And then I can say, you know, days to hours. And
Right.
then when things, and then I'm like, then I can say your mother is actively dying. And that gives people so much peace of mind to understand, to have that string to hold on to of, okay, this is where we're going. This is how fast it's going. This is how we're going to get there. We've usually talked about what the vigil will look like and who they would like to be sitting vigil with them. I have contacts with a threshold choir. So a threshold choir can come in and sing um,
Beautiful.
all sorts of different things. Scents are very important. Harsh lighting, like this light would not, no ring lights, no ring lights. Mm-mm.
No.
Right. So some
Some
some some
candlelight,
soft,
soft light, yeah.
soft lights, no overhead lights, and then I encourage people to take the time with their loved one on one. So if it's a big family, especially, the living room is where I would have the family in the living room. And
Mhm.
then wherever the dying person is staged, I would invite people to go one by one and have time holding the hand, talking to the person. The hearing is the last thing to go. So that touch and the soft words are really, really important towards the end of life. So those are the things that I do.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm just like thinking back to I loved being a hospice nurse, but there never was. And I felt like I got to, I worked for good hospices. I could give as much time as is available. You do have a caseload and you can only spend so much time. And that
Hmm.
would be a lot of times, that's the biggest thing. How much longer, what's happening, and we would visit more when it gets closer. But um, having one person like you as a liaison that can do it all, because I would come in and the social worker would come and then the chaplain separately. We'd all talk in teams sometime, but like we were rarely all at the house at the same time, right? So
Hmm.
that getting like scattered information and and there are a lot of some people just need a lot more help. Some
Yeah.
people are ready to go and they, like you said, they have a plan, and some people are in full denial like till like days before. And then the family's trying to, it can be complex, the family's trying to either they're in denial or the family's overly trying to get the patient out of denial. And it's like because they want to say
Right.
goodbye and they want to do all these things. So it's not an easy dance, and want
Mm.
to create a beautiful, like you said, as much as you can control it, like a beautiful death experience for them, a transition into
Hmm.
whatever is on the other side,
Yeah.
and for the also the family members, if they get the opportunity to say goodbye, it's like, don't you find that their grief is like so much better if they got to really have that closure moment one on one?
Hmm. Very important.
Yeah.
Very important that those moments, and there will be people um, in the state of California, a body can stay in the home for up to 72 hours, right? That's the law. So
Oh.
when you've got somebody who's traveling from out of state and trying to get there in time and trying to get there in time, and let's say they haven't, we can keep the body cool. We can keep that so that that person can have that moment to
Mm.
say goodbye. And if that's what they want, if that's what the
I didn't
family
know that.
wants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no rules. I give options. I don't give directions. I'm kind of a concierge, right? When you go to
Right.
a new city, you go down to the concierge and you're like, "Hey, what's cool?
Yeah.
What's cool? What should I do here?" And so that's what I talk to people about. and whatever decisions that they haven't made, I give them their options. They make their decisions. I'm able to refer them to different sources if I've got working relationships in those areas. If I don't, we do research together, and I do some of the legwork and make some of the tough calls and the minutia, that kind of thing. I don't get involved in people's finances at all.
Uh-huh.
Um, so if somebody is having trouble with finances or has questions about estates and things like that, I have resources to refer that out to as well. So I'm a holistic, non-medical kind of concierge. I call myself the Mary Poppins of death.
I love that.
Right. There is dancing sometimes. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there's so many things that come up, and to have someone that you can call, and like you said, it's might not be a medical medication thing. It's like
Yeah.
all of these things, and like just to know the options of what can you do, because a lot of times there's just shock for weeks, and like
Hmm.
a lot of time will go by that people are still just trying to like get things set up and like, but if early on they have someone like you that can be like, how do you want this to go down?
Yeah.
And hospice social workers do that to a degree, of course. They are wonderful,
Absolutely.
but they do have
Yes.
limited time and it is different. It's
Hmm.
not like you said, like, do you want to go to Disneyland? Do you want to go on a trip? Do you want to make a video of your life for your grandchildren? Like it gets to be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. It
Like,
gets to be whatever you want it to be. Yeah.
what do you want it to be? And we all know we're going to get to that point. We're going to transition. So also just opening the conversation that people can start talking about it before they even get a diagnosis, because
Hmm.
it's like, I already know what I want right
That's
now.
the
You know
best,
what I
right?
mean?
That's the best. Yeah.
So it's not like if I got told something tomorrow, I'm then not going to be questioning. Of course, it all varies. You don't know how much time you're going to have in your physical condition, but um, the thing that I also love that I heard you do is these like death cafes, because we don't talk about death. And I know this was many years ago, and hope we're talking about it a lot more, but when I was a hospice nurse, like nobody wanted to talk about that. Like you said, the party conversation, like, what do you do? I'm a hospice nurse. Okay. And
Oh,
then
anybody
how's the
else?
weather to somebody else? Yeah.
Anybody else to talk to? Oh my
Like
gosh.
what?
Get me out
That's
of
a
here. Get
little
me out of
weird.
here.
We
Get me
don't
out
want
of
to
here.
open that because we don't want to acknowledge like maybe someday we are going to die. But
Hmm.
it's just like we're born, we get to have this experience, and then it's just part of it. It's part of
Hmm.
our human experiences. We are going to transition and we are all going to die, or we're going to have loved ones die. Um, and so just talking about it like how we talk about birth, like it's nobody says don't talk about that. It's like a cherished, sacred thing. Oh, you're giving birth. Let's set the atmosphere. Let's everything. So like
Yeah.
for it to just become a common cultural thing to where that's how death is looked at, like
Yes.
each person's individual cultural considerations, religious considerations of what
Yeah.
they really want.
Yeah.
But that leads me to just wanting to know more about, because I've been wanting to go to one of your death cafes. I've not been, we're a bit of a distance apart, so I haven't had
Hmm.
opportunity, but I had never heard of a death cafe. So I want you to share, what is a death
Okay.
cafe? What
Okay.
you do, and then how can people find out more about death cafes?
Fantastic. Death Cafe is definitely not something that I invented. John Underwood invented the Death Cafe,
Okay.
and they started in England. So a Death Cafe is a place where people come together for cake, conversation, and tea. And it's a peer-led group. So while I set the group up and I kind of facilitate the fact that the meeting happens, we go around the circle. Hi, what's your name? Where are you from? And why are you here? And then the conversation just happens. So we go around the room, it's usually a circle. I prefer a circle. That's, you know, where I
Yeah.
live my life, in circles. So we start the circle off, and then the conversation, somebody will say, oh, I'm having this experience, I'm here for this reason. And somebody will say, oh, I'd like to piggyback on that. I had an experience similar to that, and I wonder what this is. And people just get curious and start talking to each other. And the conversations usually last about 90 minutes. I usually have 10 to 20 people at each death cafe. I'm lucky that I have a wonderful yoga collective, Santosha Yoga Collective, here in Loomis, California, that hosts our death cafes for free. And that's the other thing about death cafes, is they're free.
That's
So
great.
that's part of the model. So if you aren't in the Placer County area, if you're not in the greater Placer County area, deathcafe.org and you can put that in the show notes. I have
I
that for
will.
you.
Yeah.
They
Mhm.
they have a listing of all of the death cafes near you, and there are some that are on Zoom. Some people, my friend Rita does them on Zoom.
Oh, that's great too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so they're completely accessible. And it's just interesting. No two death cafes are the same because there's never an agenda, so it just organically unfolds based on the people that are there in the room.
And it's for everyone, right? You don't have to be dying or have a loved one dying. Like
Nope,
you can just
nope.
go talk
It's
about death. Like
you can just go talk about death and make it not weird. Yeah,
make it not weird. Yeah, I love that.
right? Or let's get weird. If it feels weird to you, then let's just live in that weird space.
Yeah, you get to be there and just,
But
yeah.
it's really beautiful. Yeah, it's a really cool thing that I'm able to do for the community and to educate people and talk about, then people kind of the next question is, okay, well, one person said to me, said, well, okay, well, I'm not dying, so, and I just looked at him and he's like, mind blown. And I'm like, yeah,
You two are gonna be
you
dying
too. Oh, we're
then.
all right. So then kind of the conversation just naturally flows into, okay, I'm healthy, right? I'm healthy. I'm not dying, quote unquote.
Right.
What can I do to get ready? What are some things that I can think about? What are some documents that I can have in place? And depending upon your phase in life, like I would say starting at age 16, 18, like think about what you want to have, what's important to you,
Hmm.
right? Because there's so many options about like post death body care, body disposition is what we call that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be put in a coffin. That's conventional. You can be cremated. That's a little bit more. I think cremation outpaces traditional burial.
Mhm.
And then there's new things. There's body composting, which is a fascinating thing that is happening. It's happening gangbusters in Washington, and it's been approved in the state of California. And by 2026, 2027, I can't remember now, we'll have the regulations in place for that option to be viable
Okay,
here.
so it's coming though.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's interesting to think about the different ways that, you may want to have your body disposed of.
Right.
Crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like this,
So,
I have a very clear, strong feeling of what I want to do. And I think like people do have that, but you got to ask the question and need to know the options,
mhm, yeah.
ahead of
Yeah.
time and have a death plan. Yeah, I love that. And you can tweak it as you get older or they go
Absolutely.
through seasons, and I'm sure it will change. And
Yeah.
I think it's really a great gift to give to your family if you have that, because it's really hard when you don't know the wishes and someone passes on. It's very difficult because people want to honor that. Well, and then a lot of times they're like, we don't know how and
Mhm.
then that's like causes a lot of also distress, like after the person has passed or heavy in grief, and you don't even know like what kind of service, what would this person want? Families talking about cremation versus this, they can't agree, so just having a plan that the wishes are so well
Yeah.
known of what does that person really want, so
Yeah.
that it's a lot of peace for the family after or the friends or whoever is taking care of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that conversation and knowing what that person wanted and being able to carry that out is another piece that's really important for the grieving process. Knowing
Hmm.
that you did the best that you could.
Hmm.
That's really important. So, yeah, it's all part of it. So that's yeah, it's a little bit of everything, and that's part of what makes it so interesting. Family dynamics, and I don't need to tell you, but I think that it's important to talk about. Family dynamics are so tangled up, they're so messy. Everybody's got, everybody's got their own take. And so to be a constant person in the space that doesn't have a horse in the race,
Yeah, you're
right?
neutral.
It's
Yeah.
all good. It's all good. This person's having this experience, this person's having their experience, and being able to hold space for the whole thing, all of it, and make it all okay. And that people need that friend, they need that mentor, they need that guide in
Yeah.
that time and space because your friends find out that you're your mom's dying and they're like, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah. A lot of people just don't do anything or say anything because they're afraid to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and they're scared of death in general.
Right.
So
And some people can't show up in that space.
they just
And
can't. Yeah.
and
They
that's okay too,
don't. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? I don't gut fish.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I just can't, I just don't show up in that space.
Right.
So
Right.
I know it's a silly it may seem like a silly comparison, but there are things
Yeah.
I just don't do. And so for somebody not to want to witness their friend dying, or even sometimes a parent or a loved one, a family member, if some people just can't do it, and that is okay too.
Yeah.
That is okay too.
I think that's powerful too, because I think a lot of people have a lot of guilt about
Hmm.
not being more present when a person, because they just couldn't handle it. They just couldn't handle the pain. And like you said, there's all sorts of different things. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you, but sometimes people are alcoholics and they just disappear. I mean, because they just can't deal and they just kind of abandon in different ways. Because, like you said, families are complicated. And what if you have any kind of dysfunction in your family, is all coming out when someone's dying. Like it
Yeah.
all surfaces. So it's really important to have someone. I love that you offer that. And what do you offer after the person has transitioned on and you're working with the client and the family? What kind of aftercare services do you have for people?
So once the person has passed on, we can talk about, funeral arrangements or celebrations of life, things like that, that generally is in place. Sometimes they want me to be involved in that. Sometimes they don't, just depends. And
Mhm.
then sometimes people want to carry on and work through some grief with me. So I'll do some grief coaching. There's a difference between grief coaching and grief counseling. I am not a counselor, but I am trained to learn and see when somebody needs more help than I can provide. So there's, like
Then you
if there was a
refer them
scale, yeah, if
deeper
there was a
level
scale
of
of grief,
need,
yeah.
then
Hmm.
you refer them to a different
Yes,
professional.
yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. That's good to
Yeah,
know. Well,
yeah.
one thing I'm wondering is
Hmm.
because I just me working in hospice, there were so many kind of magical, mystical things that happened. Like, do you
Mm.
have something, just confidentially, not saying, of course, the person's name or anything? Do you have any stories you want to share about things that like anything stand
Yeah,
out to share? Because a lot of stuff I experienced, I was like, this is kind of really cool. I mean, I was young,
super,
you know what I mean? But I was like,
super
it was
cool.
beautiful and just there's just so many layers that it made me understand
Mm.
like there's a lot of layers to this world that I don't even understand, but I know because when you're
Hmm.
in it, you can feel it and see it and stuff. So like, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
can you
Okay, so I'm
share
already
about
getting
it?
the tingles. I'm already getting the tingles. So sometimes the person who is getting ready to transition will become kind of agitated and say, I need to get a bag. I need to pack for my trip. And the loved one will be like, you're not going on a trip. And and try to calm them down and right. And then when they share that with me, I'm able to take the loved one aside and say, so we see this a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. Let's go ahead and get the bag. Ask which bag they want to take and ask what they want in the bag and just put it all in the bag and then place it next to the bedside
Mhm.
and let them know, okay, you're all packed. You're ready for your trip. And if it's and if it and if it's within you, it's okay to tell them that it's okay to go. And that moment of peace and that moment of clarity really, really helps that person move to the next, putting one foot over the threshold. Now they're 1 foot here, 1 foot there, and then that's when kind of the labor of death begins. So that's one thing that is really, really common. One woman was like, I need my briefcase. I got to go to work. I got to go to work. And the caregiver said, she hasn't worked in 60 years. I go, she needs to go to work. Let's find a way to make her feel like she's ready for work because she's walking out the door.
Oh, wow.
And we're able to have those conversations calmly and sweetly and lovingly. And if we've worked together, there's so much trust. People trust me with so much, and I'm so honored to bear witness to these really, really hard moments in their lives. It's That's the gift of the work for me. That's the gift of the work. So things like that are really common.
Mm.
Um, what else? Picking. Do you remember this? Do you
Oh
remember the
yeah,
people
yeah.
that would like
Yeah, oh
pick
yeah,
at their
yeah.
sheets?
Very common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pick at the bedding. And so I explained to people that that's a good sign that they're moving towards their transition. And people are fascinated. Some people are like, where can I read more about this? And I've got resources on my website where people can read about how the body shuts down and how the different disease processes may look, and some of the interventions that are helpful. So yeah, it's fascinating. You've probably got some bedside interesting stories. What do you
Oh, I
remember?
had so many, but I will say like one thing that was it happened a lot was people would wait. Like you think like as a nurse, I see they're gonna die now, right? Like you have all the clear signs.
Hmm.
And then people would wait for that one child coming out of state, like people where you think they can't go on anymore, right? Like physically, but somehow in some spiritual, emotional, they would literally wait until that person would come to the bedside, hold the hand, and often just say, "You can go." And they would just go. And it was like,
Yeah.
wow, it's a lot is also that person letting go. And so
Hmm.
I think it is powerful. It's very hard. I found it was very hard for people to say to like their spouse, it's okay to go. Like they felt kind of bad about it. But it's
Hmm.
like the person is going, and then a person dying often is worried about their children or their spouse. Are they going to be okay when I'm gone? So then they're fighting the process more so. So if
Hmm.
it's such a gift, if when people can say it's okay, you know,
Right.
I saw that
Right.
a um, and and I just felt like um I don't even know how to really describe it, but I felt like when someone's really near death, like, and I'm not ascribing to any specific spirituality, I'm just saying when somebody is near death, like you could feel this like thin veil. Like I could spiritually feel
Mm.
like, okay, like we're in another little realm here. This person's getting ready.
Yeah.
And I don't know if their guardian angels was grabbing them at that.
Well,
I'm not saying I know exactly where their journey went after that, but I found that to be like so beautiful. And I was really young, and this before I knew about a lot more spirituality and stuff like that. But I couldn't deny it. I was just like, this is sacred.
mhm.
And like you said, it's like really like one of my greatest honors in life too. Like that I got to be a hospice nurse and witness that and meet those people and help their journeys. Like it's um it's definitely one of the things I'm most grateful for and most proud of that I did. And it blessed me a lot to do it. It really
Mhm.
did. And
Yeah.
so, and I have a passion for hospice, like a great passion. So when I heard that it's like more things that you could do, like for people, that's wonderful. And then just educating people too, like about volunteering. Like if you could share how people that aren't death doulas, how can they volunteer for hospice? What are things that they
Oh my
can do?
gosh, it's so easy. It's so easy. It's crazy easy. So you just like fill out the application online, right? They do a background check to make sure you're not a jerk.
Yeah.
Apparently, I'm not a jerk.
Yeah.
Uh,
And educate
ta-da.
them. Yeah. They'll teach you a little bit, like, so yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a training program through the hospice that teaches you do's and don'ts, it teaches you boundaries. There's ongoing education through hospice that talks about as things come up, um, talk about the kind of roundtable cases with anonymity, talking about, okay, this is what's happening just in general, and keeping the volunteers educated and engaged. So the hospice that I work with does amazing at this, and they'll physically gather the volunteers once a quarter. So we get to know one another, which was super fun because there was a
Oh,
woman coming to my death cafe, and I didn't know that she was a hospice volunteer with my hospice. And when we
oh.
saw each other at a meeting, we just giggled, and we just, of course, we hugged and ran towards each other and did all the weird things that people are like, how do you two know each other? Um, but hospice, the things that you can do through hospice, there is there's respite. So a respite type of volunteering would be you would come into the home and give the caregiver a break. Their caregiver may want to take a nap. They may want to go to a movie. Most of the caregivers that I work with want to go to Costco, right? They need to get their big errands out of the way,
The
because they've
house.
got a chunk of time. They've got 2 to 4 hours usually where they can leave the house and do some other things. There's companionship, which is fun. So one of my hospice assignments for companionship, we played mahjong. They were looking for a fourth to play mahjong. And so I signed up, and the volunteer coordinator said, "Do you know how to play mahjong?" I said, "I know how to use YouTube." And so I learned on YouTube, and then of course they had the grace and sweetness to teach me. And now I'm huge into mahjong. I mean, I love the game, and every time I play the game, I think of this one patient.
Keep it going.
Um, so there's respite, there's companionship, there's vigil. So there's where you come in just at the end and sit vigil with the family. A lot of times that is most effective if you've been doing respite or companionship. The family knows you and is comfortable with you being there in those moments. We have a whole bereavement team that comes in after the initial hospice team. So that's another way to volunteer, is on the bereavement side.
Okay.
Um, yeah, there's all sorts of different things. My hospice is bringing on a threshold choir. It's new to our hospice. So those lovely singers will come in and sing, and they go to care homes mostly,
Mm.
so they can see a wide variety of patients, and that's a beautiful thing. If you haven't experienced a threshold choir, Google it. It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, with having singing and having we had someone who would come play the harp and they bring the harp into the
Yes.
home, and it was like
Hmm.
you'd see people would be, comatose, but then you just see their whole body relax with the harp.
Right, the whole body. Yeah. My mom's best friend was a harpist,
Yeah.
and she did that for hospice.
So there's just so many different things. Okay, so now you're giving and taking care of people and like helping to navigate death and dying and all of these things. And I know that that's your purpose and you're good at that. But then what do you do to take care of you? Like after a whole day of like dealing with family, someone
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter. I know they say have boundaries, but you do fall in love with with these patients. And
Hmm.
as a
Hmm.
nurse, it was always like you got to keep it. But I had some people that they were a patient for like a year. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
you do grieve them too because you get to know them,
absolutely.
become like a friend. So you have a lot of this going on. Like, what do you do to take care of you?
One of the most important things that I do to take care of me is I have community. So my friends, and it's been an organic process through the last few years. All of my friends are in the healing arts, right? I've got a friend who is an energy healer, and another friend that's a doula, another friend who used to be a PICU, NICU, um, oncology nurse,
Mm.
right? So dying children, like, right? So she used to do that work. My yoga studio, the instructors at the yoga studio, the owner of the yoga studio, these are my friends. These are my people, and I call them, and you're my friend, and I call you all the keepers of the light. And so because I'm surrounded by the keepers of the light, I can there will be a couple days a week sometimes if I'm between clients, or clients are in a good place, where I can kind of unplug, and I need to do that. It's very
Yeah.
important for me to do that. And I have a very supportive spouse. My spouse is somatic coach, and so he does somatic therapy with people, right? So he's working in that space. And sometimes I'll just say, can we just do a session? Will you do a session? Right? And I'll and
Yeah.
I'll let and I'll allow myself to be guided, and I'll allow myself, like, yeah, sure, I know the steps, right? And sure, I'm able to execute a lot of these different things for other people, but sometimes I need to know when I need to be held.
Yeah,
And
you need.
so I'll go into my yoga studio. I'll ask my husband, can you do a session with me and just, hold me in this space in this way? And I can talk to friends about, grief that I'm feeling, because there is grief that goes along with this job. Absolutely. There is. But I'm able to transmute it with that support. My community is worth more to me than all the gold in Fort Knox. If Fort
Oh,
Knox even has gold anymore, I don't know.
oh, yeah, community is huge, like you said, for going in and doing work. I'm glad you're supported by a wonderful community. And what are all the ways people can reach you? I'm going to link everything for your with this episode, of course, but like
Yeah.
share. Well, we'll add your social media under your name on here as well. But
Yeah,
um,
ChristyBraun.com. Common spelling, easy. Everybody knows how to spell Christy. Yeah, link it below.
they will put
But
that on.
yeah, that's where you can find me, ChristyBraun.com. Ask Christy B on socials. So that's where I am. I'm creating more and more assets on social media. It's important to me to connect with my community. And so I'm doing so much face to face, boots on the ground, and that's what I love the most. So while my website is like super on point because my husband's amazing, the social media, it's a little hit and miss. That's a little hit and miss because I do a lot of connecting. People can call me for a consultation. The 30-minute consultation as to whether or not they want to work with me is free. That's easy. Just give me, put some time on the calendar. It's a click. And then we
That's
decide if we want to work together. Sometimes it's a fit, sometimes it's not. And if it's not, I have people that I can refer out to nationwide. That's one thing that I do. I work nationwide. I have a client in Atlanta right now, that we do teledoula services. So it's a Zoom type situation.
oh, really
hmm
okay.
Yeah, where I'm supporting somebody where they're remote and we schedule time. Sometimes it's unscheduled time, right? Because
Right, right.
can't
Stuff
this
comes
doesn't
up.
fit into a schedule. But yeah,
Yeah.
we do that too. So I'm able to offer those services as well, which
Oh,
can be even for people who are local. It's sometimes more convenient to jump on a call, right? If they're out and about or whatever,
right.
we can do that. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show and yeah, for shining your bright light that you do and the work you're doing and just I'm blessed to have you on the show, but I'm so blessed to know you too. And so
I
thankful to have met
feel the
you.
exact same way. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for furthering the conversation in this space. And thank you for all the work that you do with all of the guests that you have on. I feel like you're really shining a light into some corners of the world that would not be seen otherwise. And so you are a true keeper of the light and one of
Oh,
one of my favorite favorites. So thank you. Thanks for
oh,
having me. I really
thank you.
appreciate
I
it.
received that. Thank you so much for being on here. Bye.
Bye.